Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Feel free to just quickly unmute and put the videos on and say good morning.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Great to
Morning,
see you,
all.
Simon, Andy.
Morning.
That's it. Like a massive local Gov Digital Waltons in the morning instead of night time. Just letting everyone know that we're all okay. And that's good. So as people drift in, I'll do my little bit of intro. So day 5, Local Gov Camp 2020, and due to unfortunately one of our facilitators from the first session having to go to hospital this morning, so that particular session was cancelled and will be rescheduled. So that means that this is going to be officially the first session of today, and it's always a pleasure and never a chore to introduce and host the chaps that can only be described as the Laurel and Hardy of local gov digital transformation. And those are Mr. Simon Smith, Sales Director at Goss Interactive. You can choose which one he is, but we also have Andrew Orchard, Head of Account Management at Goss Interactive. And in my head, I very much know who he is. But we're going to be joined and hosted by Simon and Andy today, and they've got a special guest in the form of Stuart McCall, Service Lead of ICT Enterprise Architecture at South Ayrshire Council, and they're going to be hosting, and they're always interesting sessions with these guys. They're going to be hosting this session that's got the sort of title, Creating and Delivering a Business Case for Digital Transformation and Improved CRM-based Online Services. So I'm going to hand over to you chaps, and I will be lurking in the background, but I'm going to turn myself off.
He literally has turned himself off even before he finished speaking. Brilliant, as always, Nick. Thank you for such a scintillating introduction. And guys, thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today. Hopefully you can see on my screen the intro slide for myself. Simon Smith, as Nick said, I'm the Sales Director for Goss, but mostly I'm going to be the slide jockey for today's session. And I'm joined by Andy Orchard, Head of Account Management.
Yeah, morning all. Good to see everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Here to introduce Stuart from South Ayrshire and also share some of the support and guidance we've been giving clients for the last few months during this kind of strange pandemic thing. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Great, thanks, Andy. So for those that aren't aware of Goss, just a quick potted history. We've been around for over 20 years now. We started out in the world of content management and CMS, and that was kind of where we earned our spurs and became recognised as one of the market leaders of content management delivery for local government. When the comprehensive spending review kicked in, we could recognise there was some significant change was in the air, so we looked at what we were doing to best suit our client needs. So back in 2012, our first iteration of the Goss Digital Platform was released, where a number of organisations deemed that we were seen as a credible CRM replacement for them. And in 2019, quite recently, then we released our no-code aspect of the platform. We look after a variety of public and private sector organisations across the UK. So, you know, I mean, when you think of the private sector, you know, this whole digital transformation journey, for them, that's just based business efficiency. That's what they've been doing for many years. And that's what we've been helping our client community there and sharing our knowledge and best practice with them, with others. So that's who we're kind of looking after. And why Goss over and above anyone else? Well, one of the things we're very proud of is our roots and our heritage based in the sunny southwest. So Andy and I are broadcasting from our respective homes in sunny Cornwall, and we're delighted to introduce Stuart, who will be coming in from South Ayrshire. But we are all about being UK based and UK focused. All of our development is done here in the UK with dedicated teams solely focused on delivering the results our clients expect. And considering obviously our heritage within public sector, obviously all the accreditations you would want from a public sector supporting organisation such as ourselves, Cyber Essentials, ISO 27001, 9001, all of that good stuff. And how are we doing that? We're doing that through a variety of platforms, actually, with our heritage and roots in the GOS content. So we have a number of clients that are using the GOS content platform. We have organizations that are leveraging our forms engine and delivering forms. There are those that quite like their CMSs and want to keep hold of them. We're completely down with that. And for those organizations, they utilize the GOS self-service platform. And then there are others that take the GOS flagship solution, which is what Stuart's going to be talking about today, which is the GOS digital platform, which gives organizations the ability to create a rich end-to-end user experience, making sure that everyone's engagement with their local authorities is a rich and beholding experience to have. And just briefly, guys, this is kind of how we see the world. So if you look across the top, you've got all of your lines of interaction coming from the community. So you've got your unstructured data on the left, where invariably, should you allow your clients to come at you using unstructured data, you'll have scenarios that they'll be coming at you, God forbid, with an email or a letter or through face-to-face, where you're going to be getting an awful lot of unnecessary and unstructured data. So when you've got that data, you're going to need some human interaction. You're going to need someone who's going to want to manage some of that content, curate it, and work out where and how that content's interacted with as part of the whole customer service interaction. And on the right-hand side, you've got your structured data, things like forms, apps, APIs, automation, where you control the level of content that's coming in, how that content's coming in, and that then in turn feeds into the digital platform as well. The point being, it's the same service interaction through the digital platform. It doesn't matter whether you're coming through a curated or an assisted service mechanism or as a self-service mechanism, it's the same fundamental business process using the GOS digital platform. So you don't have to have that old school way of dealing with certain ways of working if you're a CSA working on behalf of the customer or a self-service route. And that's really key for us, because we feel if it's built, if a business process is built that's so simple and straightforward that the customer can do it, then so the CSA should be able to do it as well, and they can help feed in and improve their user experience. But the point being, once you're into the digital platform, there isn't a question of being sent to another portal, being sent to another platform over here. You know, you want to pay this, click this link. Ooh, where's that taking me? I've got no idea. Perhaps I'll just pick up the phone instead. Rather, it's more about the fact that you can have that unified, rich experience, as Amazon, like God forbid, that everyone talks about, whereby you come in through the digital platform using integrations, simple sign-on, all that kind of good stuff. You can surface up that same unified user experience. And in certain circumstances where you can see the lines are going deeper into the business process or within the service area, we can and have replaced entire back-end systems so that we can replace complete back-end systems and provide the end-to-end service delivery using the GOS digital platform alone. So that's a brief touch point of who we are, what we're about, and what we do. But without further ado, I am going to hand over to Andy, who is going to introduce our special guest, Stuart.
Thanks, Simon. Yeah, it's with great pleasure. I'm going to be handing you over to Stuart McCall from South Ayrshire Council in a moment. South Ayrshire Council, we've been working with them for nearly a couple of years now. Primary project at the outset was to develop the new intranet called the Core for the team there as a sort of start of their digital transformation. So delivering a new interface for staff for communications, but also indeed integrating with some back office systems. So things like SharePoint, but also things like getting your payslip online through the intranet. So Stuart's going to talk us now through kind of where the journey's moving forwards from that initial project and give you an insight into the business case. So over to you, Stuart.
Thanks, Andy. I'll start with a disclaimer on this one. I'm not technical, so any technical questions you may have to take them offline. I'll also say that this is a lesson in me that I should be like my children. When I ask my children to do something, they make a bad job of something, that you never ask them again. This is a repeat of something I had to do the other day there. So I should have learned a lesson from my children on this. So what I'm going to speak about is our journey using the GOS digital platform, but in particular, how we're starting to use it for a CM Lite implementation across the organisation. Next slide, please, Simon. So just a very, very quick slide on who we are. So we're a unitary authority, southwest of Scotland, about 1,200 square kilometres in area. So we're about 30 miles southwest of Glasgow. Yes, we are in the full lockdown central belt in Scotland. So this is as far as I'm going to get this weekend and for the next 16 days. About 113,000 population, most in the 3 large towns to the north of the area. So we're predominantly rural, which obviously presents challenges. And one of the reasons why we are looking at digital services, how we can deliver them. Decreasing population, but increasing elderly population, sometimes referred to as the Costa Geriatrica, the part that we live in. Workforce of about 5,000, and there's about 3,000 of those work in education or are frontline workers. Next slide, please, Simon. So where were we? This is probably kind of typical of a lot of councils, to be honest. What if we don't change at all and something magical just happens? And I think sort of 3 years ago, this was probably the predominant feeling across the council, not just IT. Next slide, please, Simon. And what we had was, we had an architecture where we had an intranet, we had a public facing website, and we had a CRM. Transition, please, Simon. And you would expect there would be an interface between all these. So there's an information flow, data flow between your intranet, public website, CRM, etc. But unfortunately, if you click again, Simon. If you click, Simon, sorry. Yeah, we had no connections really between our intranet and public website, absolutely zero between our intranet and CRM, and a very limited one-way interaction between our public website and the CRM. So we had to do something about that architecture. And at the same time, if Simon clicks to go to the next slide, there was an organisational response to this. And that organisational response was both to that situation, but the sort of wider IT challenges that the council was facing and had faced historically. So we looked at IT as a whole, and we looked at that plan, build, support, service, split IT in two. So we have ICT operations who look after BAU service delivery, and then we have the area that I look after, which is enterprise architecture, which is that whole plan, build, so project delivery, strategy, way forward, and digital. And what we ended up with was a digital services team that was one coordinator, 3 web and social media analysts, and 1 web and social media analyst temporary, which I'm about to go out to recruitment on. So if anyone out there knows somebody who's looking for that's a shameless plug from me here. If anyone knows somebody who's looking for a post, that post will be coming up very shortly. Just to give you a kind of indication of the scale on that, previously we had a web team of 2 people. So it's a significant investment by the council, not just in that whole idea of digital services, but resource costs, because resource costs are one of our biggest costs as a council. We're always looking to reduce those. Next slide, please, Simon. So the phase 1 for us was to consider that platform, the sort of whole idea of a platform as a service and something we can build with. Now that came over very strongly in our IT strategy, which was 2017 to 2020. It's currently being rewritten, and we're still very much focused on platforms going forward. Next transition, please, Simon. And the concept that we had with this and that idea of a platform as applies to digital services was this sort of concept of a digital workplace, and using that platform to build that digital workplace. So a place to improve processes, a place to collaborate, a place to integrate, that reduction on systems and multiple systems across the organisation, bringing them into the one on this platform that we can build on. That's a workflow and change. And it wasn't just to be considered as something that would benefit the public, it was something that would benefit staff. So it was that whole piece of the digital, and I think Andy kind of hinted on it at the start, that our starting point, if go to the next slide, please, Simon. Our starting point actually was our intranet. That's sort of phase 1, starting with the user needs, going through discovery, alpha, beta, and releasing our intranet. It was the burning platform, as our transformation manager at the time used to call it, and that was where the focus was. But as we started to deliver that, we realized that this truly was a platform that we could build on. This was a platform that we could see other systems being decommissioned, being replaced, being subsumed into, and achieving that kind of idea of this digital workplace. Next slide, please, Simon. So what was our vision for this? So the vision was an integrated platform where we could deliver services to the public, we could deliver services to service providers and partners, and we could also deliver services to the council. And we kind of broke that down into kind of 5 areas. So the idea of integration, the idea of processes, forms, but also things like assisted service and My Account, and in our case, the Scottish Government My Account system. So you have at the top the kind of different people that were using that. And what we really needed to do then was use that to build on our intranet, build that out, build that integrated platform, and then start that kind of discovery work on where we go next with that. And that discovery work made us realize that there wasn't the appetite within the business, because we need to be business led, for a full-blown CRM. They didn't want the big Oracle CRMs or anything like that. They wanted a light touch CRM that integrated all the kind of good stuff that we'd already started to see on our new intranet with the public processes, and also services to staff, because staff are customers. I am a customer of HR, I am a customer of payroll, I'm a customer of finance. So we need to start looking at it that way as well. And what we really needed to do was look at where we have that kind of tie-in and have that fit. And if Simon clicks the next 2 transitions, next one as well, Simon, please. What we had was quite timorously, we had the digital strategy which came along, and that vision that we had and that kind of idea that we had fitted in with that digital strategy. So that idea of digital by choice, digital by design, digital by default, a digital culture and digital foundations across the organisation. And that was then backed up by our enterprise architecture principles. These kind of govern our sort of investment in IT and how we see IT going and what we want to do with IT and across the organisation. So they called out the idea of channel shift. So moving people from onto this platform, minimise customization. Simon highlighted at the start that idea of no code, low code, that type of thing. We wanted to do that. But also for us, that idea of leverage and consolidate, that was one of our key EA principles, was to reduce the number of systems that we had, but also leverage what we've got, that idea of reuse before buy before build, and that was very key for us. But we also wanted to build something that was usable and accessible. If anyone's had the pleasure of going to our existing website, you can almost see the different web developers in different phases as we've gone through it. We don't have that consistent experience. When we're integrating into third-party systems, the look and feel changes slightly, things like payments. So we wanted to make it usable and accessible. Next slide, please, Simon. So for us, the starting point, and this is the kind of the crux of the presentation, is that idea of a business case. It should be the starting point for any piece of work, to be honest. And I think it was an area for us that when we changed that organisational response, one of the things that put in place was a very strong governance structure around IT and IT investment. So we have what we call a technical review board. That technical review board assesses IT investment and decisions, and this is where this outline business case gets presented. We have to take that to them for their buy-in, and it's very much business-led. It's not an IT-led technical review board from that point of view. So on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see the kind of main bits that we have to consider in our business case. So executive summary, challenge, goal, solution, costs, benefits, execution. Over to the right, these are the sort of section headings, if you like, in the business case that we took to that technical review board to get that approval for this piece of work. And the top 3, we had an Australian digital transformation manager, and he wasn't a huge fan of some of the terminology that was used elsewhere in the gov.uk and the Scottish Government on business cases and things. And he said that the 3 things we should be focusing on, where are we now, where do we need to be, and how do we get there? And that very much forms the sort of basis of a lot of our business cases going forward. It's now in our template. Following on from that, we have outputs and benefits, strategic fit, which I've discussed in the previous slide, and then things like costs and budgets. Benefits realisation is very important for us as well. And then the project plan, which I'll touch on right near the end. Next slide, please, Simon. So looking at the kind of outline business case and for CRM, which was the next phase of what we were doing, we called it a sort of customer engagement piece. If you look at the outputs and benefits that we would expect from that, right at the centre is this single view of the customer, which we've never really been able to do before, and this is where case management comes in. But when we spoke to the TRB and we sell this across the organisation, we like to flip this on its head as well and say it's not just a single view of the customer for us, but it's a single view for the customer to us. You know, me sitting at home as a citizen of South Ayrshire, I can see all the transactions that I've made with the council, whether that's a council tax claim, whether it's a licence application, a misbin, all these kind of things, and it's getting that benefit going both ways. It's not just from that our viewpoint, sorry. And that also applies to staff. So it's a single view of the staff within the organisation and how we're doing things with there. So if I just go around the bits at the sides, do you have things like the citizen account, you know, that whole idea of my account, and that underpins what we're doing here. We have the idea of that single channel with report forms, assisted service, all the kind of things that the GOS platform now gives us around case management. But very much key down at the bottom right is things like digital processing, workflow, report, booking, case, payments. We went live with our payments integration just this week on Monday. And again, things like workflow, internal and external. You know, staff, I've said this before, staff are customers of, you know, make requests of different services within the organisation. Let's change the processes and change the workflow and have that within this case management system. And then up the top right, we have the idea of elected members having their own case management system. So how they handle complaints, how they handle you know, inquiries that come in. But when we move to this, we're not there yet. This is one of the areas that we are starting to work on. This will give them the ability to see what officers within the council are actually involved in it. They'll be able to see the progress on it, and they'll see that kind of the information without them having to chase up the emails and phone calls, etc. So that's again another output and a benefit for us. Next slide, please, Simon. So taking that down into the sort of areas within the GOS platform itself. Obviously, over at the far right, I spoke about payments. So that idea of the API connector, at the moment we use Capita, and on our current website, we had a form that sat on Capita's website, and anytime we wanted a change or a customization or anything done, that was a cost. So this is revenue avoidance for us by being able to customize and build these within this digital platform. So it allows for custom payment pages to be embedded into that custom process, and it ties into the back office financial systems. Case management over at the left, you know, requests and complaints, it's very generic. It gives us a lot of, you know, everything that we need from it so far. But automated assignment to correct staff member, we've done a lot of work in the background with our Active Directory, and our GOS system integrates fully into Active Directory. So we have that sort of single view of the organisation now, and can see who the right people are in the right roles and tie that in. And that's been really critical for us. You've got the history record of all action and communications, the inquiry view and the citizen view, and there's that idea of standardised dashboards. And then the two areas in the centre, the kind of report it and slot booking, are what gives us the functionality that allows us to deliver on that case management as well. So we've got integrations with the open API into our GIS. We use Esri. So we tie straight into ArcGIS. We're tying into things like Workforce, which is an Esri product as well. We're able to do that type of thing as well. And again, slot booking with our appointments, and that appointment thing is actually becoming quite critical in this recovery and renewal post-COVID as we look to open our customer contact centres and things again. Next slide, please, Simon. And as my job title, and Andy said at the start, enterprise architecture, it would be remiss of me not to put a more architecture diagram in. So here we have that kind of idea of the citizen self-service, assisted service, same forms available to both staff, and tying it in straight into the back office systems. And then we have that third-party integration. And third party for us at the moment. I've mentioned the GIS with Esri, but we've also got an integration into our Oracle. So we use Oracle e-business suite, sorry. And we use Oracle to actually pull in a service for staff to get their payslips. So we've got a third, and it displays within that digital services platform, and it's seen as a case, if you like, within there as well. Next slide, please, Simon. Next slide, Simon. There we go. Yep. Where are we now? So where are we now? Everything's underpinned by my account and that idea of the book and apply, and it's all wrapped around that whole idea of the case management and the GOS CaseIt product. So these are the areas that we've been working on just now. Our plans, which I'll talk about in the next slide, changed very slightly from where we had when the outline business case to where we are now in response to the lockdown. But if we look at licensing, one of the key things with licensing was reducing that avoidable contact, stopping the taxi drivers, for example, coming into the customer contact centres to renew their taxi licence. What can we do to do that? What can we do to change these things? And that's where we've kind of focused in licensing and changing these things. So it's all about that, reducing face-to-face contact and using the right things in the right place to drive that change, make digital by default with that. Similar with waste, what changes can we make around things like mist bins, that type of thing, but also improving the integration into the in-cab technology. So one of the areas that we're looking at is when there's a reported mist bin on the GOS website, on the platform, a case comes in, it's automatically routed through to the in-cab technology using the GIS. Complaints, so members' complaints, I spoke about that as well, the sort of feedback, but things like ombudsman and the other complaints that come in, looking to manage those at the moment through the case system as well. And then I've kind of hinted a few times at it, bookings, so being able to book appointments. Our customer contact centres prior to lockdown, you could just pitch up and just wait in a queue and go in and see an advisor or speak to somebody. Obviously, we want to avoid that going forward, so we're using the booking system through cases to actually be able to do that. Next slide, please, Simon. So if we're next, just as a kind of final slide, probably a lot of people have seen something like this. This was a kind of meme that went about right at the start of lockdown. Who led the digital transformation in your company, COVID-19? I wouldn't say it's led the transformation within South Ayrshire, but it certainly accelerated and changed what we've focused on. What we've delivered wasn't exactly what we had planned in the outline business case as far as the way we've done it, because we've obviously had to focus on the services that we need to recover and renew as we were going on that. And the platform gave us the flexibility to do that, and it's actually been really, really good for that. We are looking to implement things like web chat. That's where we're wanting to go next. And as I say, we've also been looking at the tools within there for things slightly outside the box. I used this example before. We used to have a thing, probably somebody saw it in Pinterest, this idea of a giving tree at Christmas time. So it was trees that were put up in our offices for staff. And the staff, there was tags put on it for vulnerable children within the community who would maybe not get a Christmas present. And staff were able to take those tags, take them home, buy a present, hand it back in, and on Christmas Day, these presents would be delivered. We're obviously not going to be in the office. The Scottish Government have told us we're probably not going to be in the office for another 6 months. So how do we do something like that? Because it's obviously something that these children might look forward to. It's maybe the only Christmas present they're going to get. And we're actually going to use the GOS bookings and the case management system to do that and do it online, so that staff who are working from home would be able to actually book and reserve a present for a vulnerable child within the community. So just changing the way we do things, but that whole digital platform gives us the flexibility to do that. And final slide, please, Simon. So that's everything I think I've got to say. Thanks for listening. And there's my contact details if anyone does have anything that they want to pick up afterwards as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Stuart. Thanks again for giving more of your time this week to us. So we really appreciate that. Anyone out there got any questions for Stuart from today's presentation at all?
One of those awkward silent moments.
Yeah, it is a little bit awkward now, isn't it? One of those things.
If you have a question, can you unmute yourself to ask the question as opposed to putting up a hand or... feel free just to unmute.
Certainly a busy slot when you were at our user group, wasn't it, Stuart? Quite a few questions being fired in about how you're moving off your old systems and stuff like that. But no, I'd echo Andy's thoughts. Really good. Thanks again.
I tell you what, Simon.
Yes, sir.
Can you, maybe you could share some of those questions?
Oh my days! Right, yeah. So good one. I mean, we had questions because quite a number of people that were listening in from the GOS user community were users of another CRM system whose name begins with L, ends in N, and has got Agon somewhere in the middle. So they were quite interested to understand from Stuart how that transition from an existing old school CRM was to moving to the GOS platform, and that was quite an interesting question. Quite a few people asked the question around there, didn't they, Stuart, as to how they were working. You said at the time you were kind of dual running with the two systems. Can you talk us through
Pretty much,
work?
we have a renewal date on that system that shall remain nameless of March 2021. So at the moment we are targeting the services who have a real pressing need to be up for that recovery and renewal piece, but we intend targeting everyone else by the end of March. So it is a phased approach that we will start replacing the ones that I showed in that slide, licensing, waste. These are the ones we're targeting first, but we will intend replacing them all. So that we're completely off that system, and that goes back to that whole architecture. The vision and the architecture was that platform that we build on. Leverage and consolidate. Let's consolidate a lot of our processes into the one system, both intranet and internet and CRM, but CRM Lite into that one system, integrating the staff view, the customer view into the back office and onto management as well.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Another one that was quite surprised me actually was the numbers of people that were quite keen to get access to your business case for change, which you very kindly offered up to the community to share, because I think a lot of people, I mean, we run a survey at GOS and have done for a number of years where one of the questions we ask people is, where do you have a digital strategy or a business case for change, and we're always quite surprised at the numbers that either don't or are referring or reviewing. I think you yourself said that you were looking to review your strategy again. How's that?
The IT strategy, I have 1st of November to have it finally rewritten. But it's a kind of standalone IT one, and we have a separate digital one. But as I say, part of that sort of organisational response was looking at the governance around these things and putting in firm requirements for a review board, business cases, these kind of things. And I think it has focused the mind, and it focuses the business as well, not just IT. I mean, enterprise architecture is that link between IT and the business, and it's very much making the business focus on what they want to do and what they need to do going forward, and challenging them. And I think that it does give us the framework that we need to do it. And there was a lot of moans and groans at the start, why can't we just do it? But I think it does call it out, and particularly the benefits piece. We need to, let's just say we're maturing on the identification of benefits and the realization of benefits. But I think that's so important that that's called out, and already with the GOS digital platform, we've been able to realise a number of the benefits that we called out.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, you can.
Yes, I'm just, Stuart, in light of obviously what's happened over the last 8 months, how easy was it? I mean, did you manage to stick to that strategy?
Yeah.
To all intents and purposes, or is it one of those where all of a sudden a crisis occurs of the magnitude that we're experiencing, and it's a case of, making it up as you go along?
I would say we have stuck to it.
Yeah.
And the big kind of making it up as you go along, if you like, happened at the business as usual ICT operations side. Let's getting everyone away into home working and setting all that up. The EA side was able to continue. We had a lull to begin with. We refocused very quickly and we reprioritised. So that outline business case and the plan that was in it, what we have delivered wasn't in that plan. But we've been able to deliver the things that we said we were going to do, just not in the order that we thought we were going to do them, just to meet those changes. But I think it's an often overused word, agile, but we have been using agile delivery methodologies for a lot of this, what we're doing, and I think that fitted in quite nicely with where we were. We could react, and we weren't totally committed to one way of doing things. So reprioritising rather than completely changing stuff.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. I'd be interested to know from the rest of the audience how many of those guys are where they are in relation to Stuart, where they feel they're kind of behind him, ahead of him. You know, are they reviewing their strategies? Have they started to realise business benefits? Because yeah, like I say, from our community's perspective, quite a few people are going back to revisit and reconsider. I think certainly in light of what COVID has taught them.
Well, there you go. There you go, attendees. Mr. Smith has thrown out almost like a challenge, really. It's almost like challenge Stuart. Are you further in front of him, or are you behind him, or will most of you be diplomatic and come on and say we're at the same point? Does anyone want to unmute themselves and get involved? What about Hannah? Hannah
Are you just randomly picking on Hannah?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Are they on the list?
Yeah, no, sorry.
Oh, Hannah.
I missed the question, sorry. I was
That's all right.
distracted by the cat.
Simon, go for the question again.
So my question was to the wider audience, less about challenge Stuart. Are you ahead of Stuart or behind Stuart? Just where do you see yourselves on your digital transformation journeys, using kind of Stuart as an indicator of how far those guys have come in a few months? Because as I said, we've got quite a few people at the user community session that we had going back to Stuart, asking for visibility of his business case for change to either refactor where they are at the moment or to restart it. So it's just to understand where the rest of the wider community was.
So I'm in an interesting position. So I went through a very similar business case, but more for a specific service a couple of years ago. So I'm the operations supervisor for the Blue Badge service at Kent County Council. We went through quite a big digital transformation, went from about 50% paper and 50% online applications to pretty much 70% online and 30% paper. Very similar setup. So we did a business case and all of those sorts of things as well. Very, very similar thought processes and logics, having to go through all the same kind of hoops so that everyone in the local government has to unfortunately go through to get sign off, but it was absolutely worth it and has made certainly the COVID transition a lot better, I believe. Certainly from my perspective, it made the transition from working in an office and having access to everything straight away very, very much simpler, and it's enabled us to even be able to continue things like face-to-face assessments and those sorts of things in secure ways.
Excellent, thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Hannah. Anybody else wish to contribute? Otherwise, I believe Mr. Smith might have some more content. So it's either your questions or Mr. Smith.
No, not Mr. Smith, Mr. Orchard.
It's actually me, this one.
That's even worse. Please have some.
Oh, come on, Nick. Come on. Be fair. Play fair.
Yeah, play nicely.
Right.
No, I mean, all joking aside.
Oh, can I tell you what? Who we might pick on? Mike Ward. Mike Ward, are you there?
Yeah.
I feel like a medium.
Hello.
Are you there, Mike?
Can you hear me?
There you are, look. You're waiting for
Yeah.
it. So
The only thing that came to mind there was sometimes I thought maybe the business case isn't always the be all and end all, because I was asked by our senior leaders to change our digital platform, and sort of retrospectively created a business case to match the decision, if you like. So just something to bear in mind is that it wasn't about me creating a business case because I think change would be a good idea. For me, it came from the top, and business case, the change was a no-brainer, if you like. So it's something to bear in mind.
Thanks, Mike. One way of approaching it, I guess. When change happens, create the rules for why it happened.
Yeah.
It's a South Hams way.
Devonshire way.
Any more before we unleash Mr. Andrew Orchard on you?
To be fair to Andy, it was only just in case, you know, there weren't as many questions as we had before. Just an opportunity to showcase what other members of the GOS community have been doing during COVID, to try and, you know, kind of like Stuart was saying, find alternative ways of working and streamline business services. I think in the absence of questions, Andy, I think you've got you've got a maximum of 15 minutes. We want to give these guys some time to power down after this session. So
yeah, absolutely. No, okay, yeah. So I think one of the key parts of that business case was, I think, the investment in a set of key deliverables that would support the transformation journey. We actually took some cues, I think, from that business case from another council, I think, that we Stuart, who were on a similar transition away from the well-known CRM starting with L and ending in N, and kind of getting yourself fit with a set of components that would kind of make the transition and delivery really easy. And I guess some really good examples of that came to light, obviously, you know, really because of COVID, because of lockdown. And we saw a huge amount of emerging requirements from a number of our clients around recycling centre bookings and just bookings in general, perhaps. Services that wanted to reopen but needed to, you know, coordinate the availability of certain services. So we a number of clients had our booking system for a number of years, but traditionally used it for sort of sports events during half terms, used it for training courses and the like. So sort of one-off, fairly irregular events, but open to, you know, large amounts of users. So we started to see clients sort of saying, "Oh, we need to open up bookings for our recycling centres. How are we best going to do that?" So through our Slack community, we set up a number of conversations with our clients around, you know, how they might achieve such wonderful things with bookings. And lo and behold, within a matter of, you know, in some cases, in Antrim and Newton Abbey's case, within a matter of a week, we had them up and running with recycling centre bookings through using exactly the same technology that they had in place, that they've been using for a couple of years. And that led about to basically, you know, a slot-based booking system where they could build up availability throughout the day in 15-minute timeframes, but not just as simplistic as, you know, I want a time today for an appointment, but broken down a little bit further into, depending on your vehicle size, would depend on how much capacity at that particular occurrence you took up. So in this example here, we have a large van, a small van, car and trailer, and a car. The large van takes up three spaces effectively, and the car takes up one. So by using the system and the way it was designed, they were very easily able to sort of manage demand, controlling traffic flow, giving customers a sense of availability, a sense of booking, and taking obviously an awful lot of pressure away from the recycling centres themselves, and also away from the customer contact centre. And it is an end-to-end digital experience. So within the site itself, they use devices in the recycling centres to check users in. So I think at 12:30 here we got a booking. So they're logging into their interface and seeing the next cars coming in, checking the registration number, and literally using the technology, checking those users in, which is all recorded. So within the context of Antrim, they've had well over 30,000 bookings since launching 2 or 3 months ago. And they've been able to, we hope, greatly rationalise the amount of waste they're actually recycling. One of these recycling centres is right on the border of Belfast City. So they had an awful lot of Belfast City residents trying to dump their waste at this recycling centre. So by adding a booking system with inbuilt address validation, the hopes are not just to sort of bring efficiency around with bookings, but also save a lot of unnecessarily waste that they're handling at that centre. And this story kind of continued really around the UK. So we've been in South Ayrshire talking this morning. We were then approached by East Renfrewshire Council. So we're on a big digital customer experience programme with the team there. Again, moving away from their traditional Lagan CRM. And they were approached by the Scottish Digital Office with a solution for bookings and some of the early, I think, Microsoft forms for track and trace and things like that. They stood up the bookings and unbelievably, for one reason or another, the oddly named Green Hags Recycling Centre is the most popular recycling centre in the world. So within the first couple of weeks of opening up with Microsoft bookings, it would just fall over because it couldn't handle the sheer demand of thousands of users trying to get their bookings in. So the team were obviously a sort of a funny place there, sort of handed a solution, recommended to use it, and got on the phone to us to say, what did we have? Did we have experience of doing such things? Obviously, yeah, no, we did. We'd done it at Antrim and a couple of other places who are now rolling it out in Surrey, etc. So again, similar principles where users can come in, again, having not been familiar with the concepts of having to book yourself into the recycling centre. You validate your address to make sure you are a resident. You come through to the calendar, much like online shopping with your local supermarket. You can choose a suitable time slot throughout the day. So here you can see there's roughly 5 spaces available for each 10-minute window. And as you go through, you can make that booking and choose your time slot. So again, slightly different flavour here, where it's all cars that are going into these slots. They're not accepting larger vehicles. Put in your reg number, make that booking, and you're away. So a service that really wouldn't have been handled by the customer services team, but as it was digitized, it was really easy to roll out. The first few weeks, the first Wednesday we launched, they had well over 700 bookings within the first 8 minutes. So it was a huge amount of interest in the service. Obviously, yes, over time that's petered off, but they've got the dashboards here within the context of the platform to monitor the trends. So they launched one site initially, then they launched a second for bookings as they saw how successful it was at the first. And more recently, they've opened up vans and trailers to make bookings as well, which starts to blend itself into the permit concepts. So you can see here within this week, in the middle of September, they took 3,300 bookings. So again, really good use of the platform. Same principles over here in West Lothian, the other side of Scotland. This is really focused on the van or trailer concepts. So users, again, with those larger vehicles who would ordinarily have a permit, obviously their waste was building up. So the team here, again, used the same principles, different length of time slots. So this is 40 minutes. And allow a user, again, to book the different categories of vehicle. So it was really, I think one of the key components to the transition is the use of a standard sort of no-code product, the ability for the team to just, very quickly put those components together to build something. And a recent contract award for us over in Stockton, just kind of assembling, their program. COVID happened. What do we do? And then as we sort of came out of that first lockdown, they wanted to open up their museums and some of their libraries. So again, sort of reuse the core bookings to not only just allow the bookings, but also take payments for those as well. So you can book yourself in for an hour, and here we can see again that the capability kind of expanding into different packages having different prices. So it's really interesting to watch one core product deliver so many services. And as Stuart described, that giving tree will be doing, this another deliverable within the same set of tools. And it's also enabled us to upgrade that core product to make some of these things easier to manage. So to make it easier to create, 60 or 70 occurrences within one day. And then, if you make mistakes on those, make it easy to cancel them as well. So it's really sort of, focused in on the core product, and then every client we have kind of gets those benefits by using something much more standardized, rather than, going off and building their own, their own interface or bespoke development to suit that. It's much more scalable in that way. So really good examples, really good showcases of the tool sets, delivering the business case, providing a bit of return, and enabling people to keep services alive.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. You're still on Slack, I see. Busted. Right, good. Thanks, Andy. That was a great, quick, impromptu show and tell of what other members of the GOS community within local government have been working on to help support their citizens. And from our perspective, that's pretty much our session done. I would like to thank Stuart once again for his time, and he has been very gracious with his time, not only for us and our community, but as he said at the end of his session, he's more than happy to chat with you guys. So if you've got questions for him, either reach out to him directly or via myself or through Nick. Because at the end of the day, one of the big outcomes of our user community sessions this week was, you're all got big challenges. You're all doing similar things. You're not all doing the same way. But if you can help each other, learn from each other to build on the shoulders of giants, then we'll be very keen to help support that. Mr. Hill.
You know what? I think you've gone from Laurel and Hardy to the Starsky and Hutch of local gov digital transformation. That was absolutely smashing.
I don't have a big cardigan though.
Well, I was going to say actually, yeah.
And I'm a bit too fat to slide over the bonnet, if I'm honest.
That was great. I'm guessing if when I make the recording available, if I just sort of put a call to arms, if if people want to maybe approach Stuart to maybe get a copy of his business change, his business case. Do you think would that be agreeable, Stuart?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem with that. I'll obviously take the financials out, because I had my friends and family discount from GOS.
All right, yeah. All right, so yeah, the skeleton, the structure of the business case would be shared. Okay, well, that's great. Well, thank you very much, gents. As always, it's a pleasure.
Never a chore.
Well, thanks for having us, Nick.
To hear from you. Obviously, to see you is another thing. But thank you very much once again. We will be sharing the recording and the slides, and I will obviously put a call to arms if you want to get Stuart's business case off him. But for now, I'll bid you all farewell. There is another session this afternoon with Sarah Talbot, Head of Emerging Technologies at Swindon. But yeah, nice one, gents. Stay safe.
Always. Stay safe, everyone. Thanks again for your time, and thanks for coming. And thanks again, Stuart. Cheers, guys.
Yeah,
bye.
cheers, Nick.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye now.